I have the esteemed pleasure to introduce our governor. John Kitzhaber was born in Colfax, Washington, and moved with his family to Oregon at age 11. He graduated from South Eugene High School in 1965, and after earning his bachelor's degree at Dartmouth College, returned to Oregon to study medicine at the University of Oregon Medical School, now OHSU. Upon becoming a doctor, he practiced emergency room medicine in Roseburg, Oregon from 1974 to 1988. Governor Kitzhaber was first elected to the Oregon legislature in 1978, serving in both the House and Senate until 1994. That was the year I came to Oregon, by the way, for the first time. And again in 1998, Oregonians elected John Kitzhaber as their governor. After 2 terms, John Kitzhaber continued his work to improve access to cost-effective health care, becoming one of the nation's most respected voices on health care reform. Concerned about the impact of the fiscal crisis on Oregonians and seeing the opportunity through that crisis to create systemic change, Kitzhaber ran for governor again in 2012 and won election to an unprecedented 3rd term. The governor's agenda during this 3rd term has been focused on transforming Oregon's system of health care, creating a public education system that prepares Oregonians for the jobs and economy of the 21st century, and strengthening Oregon's economy in every corner of the state. Please welcome Governor Kitzhaber.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We want me to shake your hand one more time.
Well, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to be here. I want to apologize in advance to the recipients of the awards. I'm going to have to leave just before that part of the program. If you have been following the news, I've got a lot of balls in the air right now. I do want to introduce my sister, Ann, Dr. Kemi, who has actually taught here for 25 years at Lane Community College. So. I am not nearly as good an extemporaneous speaker as Congressman DeFazio, not having had the opportunity to drink a couple of glasses of beer before I got here. And I'm afraid I'm not going to be as eloquent as President Weed. But I do want to start with a couple of numbers that he referenced. The federal definition of poverty is $23,850 for a family of 4. It's a definition that hasn't actually changed since the 1970s. And what that means is if you make $23,900 in America today for a family of 4, you're not considered to be in poverty. Now that is food, rent, education, medical bills, and transportation for 4 people. And even with that definition, 1 out of every 6 Oregonians lives in poverty. And in Lane County, that number is about 1 out of every 5. And to put that into context, if you were a man or a woman earning $12 an hour, working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, and you will earn before taxes $24,960, which barely exceeds the federal definition of poverty. And that assumes that this man or woman finds employment at a wage that is about 30% higher than our minimum wage, which is going to $9.25 an hour, never misses a day at work, never takes a day of vacation, and never calls in sick. Now think about that. Now, you probably wonder why I'm bringing this up at a well-deserved celebration for the 50th anniversary of this wonderful institution, and the answer is pretty straightforward. When it comes to giving people a path out of poverty and putting them on the road to prosperity, there is no single factor more important nor any investment as significant as education, period. And when you look at the jobs that are out there now, both geographically and industrially, Lane and its sister community colleges play a very, very central role in providing Oregonians the career and technical skills that not only they need, but that employers need, both large and small, throughout the state. Now, I assume you were probably expecting me to come down here and start on a lighter note, which was my initial plan. When I think about what this community has meant to me, what this community still means to me, what the hundreds of thousands of people owe to this institution whose lives they have touched. I can say a lot of things about this community with great fondness because, after all, I was raised here. As a boy who moved 5 times before he turned 11, I found in this best corner of the Pacific Northwest an opportunity to feed my curiosity for the natural world. I tramped up and down the Willamette Valley and up the McKenzie and out past Fern Ridge. I found my love for science working with a retired professor of biology named Ralph R. Hustis, who ran something called the Mouse House in a Quonset hut over by the mill race. I got my first taste of politics here, canvassing for a levy election for District 4J. And on election night, with the encouragement of my mother, who was a serious and perhaps militant member of the League of Women Voters, I did not go to the party. I was sent out to the county election office to see whether my sidewalk pounding actually produced a quantifiable difference in the race, which began to cement my growing reputation as both a nerd and an egghead. I could talk about how Lane really puts community back in community colleges, how 98% of the students at this institution come from this community and go back to this community, taking with them the skills and the training that they have acquired from the hardworking staff and faculty that work here. And that's why this institution is such an incredibly important resource for the South Willamette Valley. I could talk about the history, which Mary alluded to, starting as a vocational school before the outbreak of the Second World War, which fundamentally changed every spot on earth, including here in Oregon. I could also talk about this institution's ability to look downstream and actually see the industries and opportunities when they're at their very seed stage, and then move quickly to design career and technical educational programs to actually meet those needs, which Lane did again in 2010 by working with other community colleges on the Green Initiative that prepares students for Oregon's growing clean economy. And of course, I could expound for a long time upon the incredible good fortune that this institution has to have had Mary Spilde at the helm for now going on 14 years. But instead, I'm simply going to say, Mary, you are now 2 years away, as I understand it, from becoming the longest-serving president of Lane Community College. You are an inspiration to more people than you possibly know, including myself and many people I know. And while you are famously from Scotland in terms of birth, you are an Oregon treasure, and we are very, very grateful to have you. But amid today's festivities, I just want to take a moment while we're together and talk a little bit, very, very briefly, about a goal that we set for ourselves 4 years ago, and that was to try to reduce poverty statewide from 18% today to below 10% in 2020. And I think that we can get there. I really believe we can get there, but community colleges are going to do as much as any single brilliant part of our educational spectrum. They are going to be absolutely essential to addressing the issue of poverty in our state. Are we focusing on early learning? Absolutely. Are we bringing full-day kindergarten statewide next fall? Absolutely. Have we done more for K-12 schools, adding almost $1 billion through bipartisan leadership? Absolutely. But there's no question to me that community colleges really give us the opportunity to reach out and fulfill our commitment to equity and opportunity. And I just want to say that 64, I hadn't realized the relationship between this institution in 1964, and it was when we passed the Civil Rights Act. But the other thing that happened in 1964, for those of you who are paying attention, was a summer of riots. It was a year when our cities burned. And I think we should all be profoundly disturbed by the events in Ferguson, Missouri, and to stand here 50 years later and realize that although we've elected an African-American president, and although our institutions are just beginning to reflect the diversity of the population that they represent, we have made so little progress addressing the fundamental inequities and disparities in our society that something like that could still happen in the United States of America in 2014. So I just want to conclude, as you see I've thrown these away, I just want to conclude that if we are truly committed to equity and opportunity in this nation, it will be community colleges as the vehicle through which we can make the American dream a real possibility for each and every one of us. So thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on a great 50 years. Thank you.